All right. See the on-air sign. So good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone, all the candidates for joining us today for the forum for the Cass County Sheriff's Office. The forum is being hosted by the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley. My name is Ashley. I'm a co-president of the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley, and I'll be the moderator for this forum. For this forum in particular, the forum is being streamed live on the city's Facebook channel and also recorded for playback on the City of Fargo's government PEG TV channel, TV Fargo 56. This recording will also be posted to the League of Women Voters Facebook page and website within the next couple days. So if you do want to see a playback or candidates, if you want to share the recording, it will be available on our website and on our Facebook page in the next couple days. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase the understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. If you would like to learn about the League, please visit our website or find us on Facebook. Before we begin, we do have a statement that we read related to the recordings of the forums and their use. The League of Women Voters sponsors candidate forums to provide the public with an opportunity to hear candidates discuss the issues that are important to members of the public. The League is a nonpartisan organization and does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The views expressed in each forum are those of the candidate, not those of the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters posts complete, unedited recordings of the forums. Editing is authorized only for official media reporting. Excerpts or edited clips of any candidate forum may not be used for partisan political purposes. We do want to thank the City of Fargo for providing the space and technical assistance this evening, both the commission chambers, the space for the audience, the technical abilities that the City of Fargo chambers have is exceptional, and so we certainly appreciate their help. Before we begin, I just want to go through the rules and procedures. So I have 2 rows here of questions submitted from the audience. So thank you to the audience for being so active and engaged in submitting questions today. So they are submitted in written form on index cards that are then given to our volunteers. Questions may be screened for clarity or combined with other similar questions. All candidates will be given the opportunity to address each question. So the candidates participating tonight are for Cass County Sheriff. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their opening remark. Each will then be allowed 1 minute to respond to each question. And then at the conclusion of the question and answer period, candidates will be given another minute for a closing remark. The timer is right over here, right kind of above me. And it will count down and indicate the time when you're done. And then you will hear a buzzer, which means your time has expired. We just ask that you complete your sentence or thought when the buzzer goes off so that we can move on to the next candidate or question. And so we'll also alternate who begins. Opening statements will begin with Jesse Johnner, and then the first question, Matthew King will have the opportunity to answer that first, and then back to Jesse Johnner and back and forth and so on. And we are going until 7:05 tonight, so we'll take questions until probably about 7:03, and then allow for the candidates to do their closing remarks. So Jesse Johnner, we'll begin with you if you want to start with your opening remarks.
Sure. Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thanks everyone who's here this evening to take interest in the sheriff's race. My name is Jesse Johnner, and I grew up in North Dakota. I grew up in Strasburg, North Dakota, and I grew up in a military family and a law enforcement family. My dad was full-time in the military, and my grandpa was a sheriff in Emmons County. So throughout my youth, we moved a number of times. I graduated from Fargo North, and upon graduating Fargo North, I attended North Dakota State University, where I got my Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice. And immediately after that began my employment with the Cass County Sheriff's Office. I started at the very bottom at the Cass County Sheriff's Office and worked my way up to the office of sheriff. I started off in the jail. I worked in the patrol division. I worked in the investigative division. I worked for the Narcotics Drug Task Force, the Metro Area Street Crimes Unit. I was a captain overseeing special operations.
All right, thank you. Matthew King.
Like Sheriff, thanks everybody for allowing us to have this forum tonight. I'm Matthew King. I grew up in Hunter, North Dakota, My mom is from the Kindred area. My dad's from the Castleton area, so I have a lot of strong ties to Cass County. I started working on the farm when I was 8, so I have a big agricultural background. I got into law enforcement a little late in the game. I was in my 30s, so I started in 2011 as a reserve, where I got to work in many aspects of the office. That promoted me up into patrol. From patrol, I've been given opportunities to run the UAS, and I've instructed across this country for the last 6 years, on development of policy, procedures, budgets, and building successful units across this country. And then of late, I've gone into court transport.
Okay, all right. So for our first question, Matthew King, we'll begin with you. What would be your top priorities as Cass County Sheriff?
Top priorities: building the community relations, working on communication. Communication, we can all do better jobs, whether it's with our spouses, with our kids, coworkers, so on. We need to work on communication inside this office, I feel. Public safety is the next one, building those relationships with the communities. I'm a big COP guy, or community-oriented policing. I worked with Castleton a couple years back because as Sheriff has his burger cook-off to start off the National Night Off, I brought that into Castleton and had businesses. So not only does the community get to see law enforcement for a meet and greet, but now they get to meet other people of that community and just kind of build a better community.
All right, and Jesse.
My top priorities right now are increasing our capacity at the Cass County Jail. We've had some issues over the last few years with capacity there, and so I've been working diligently with our Cass County commissioners and our county administrator, along with some other outside organizations, to put together a plan to increase capacity there, because I think public safety needs to be the #1 top priority in our community, and definitely that's an issue for us right now. A couple of my other top priorities are certainly we're having a lot of addiction and mental health issues, and so working together with our community partners to try to figure out a way that we can reduce the amount of addiction that we have in our community, and also work to curb some of the mental health issues that we're working through. And then finally, there's a shortage right now in law enforcement and the applicants and the amount of people that are coming into our field. And so,
All right. So Jesse, you'll start with answering our next question.
do we have an opportunity to finish our thoughts on
You
this?
certainly can. Yes, I didn't mean to cut you off.
All right.
So for the next question, there's a number of questions related to your experience in law enforcement, but also specifically your experience in supervisory roles. Since the Sheriff's Department has, I think one question said, over 200 people. So can you explain any supervisory roles that you've held specifically in law enforcement and how that translates to running the Sheriff's Office? So Jesse, we'll start with you.
Yes, that will help me finish off the first question. So during my time in law enforcement, I've had a lot of excellent opportunities through previous sheriffs to expand my knowledge in law enforcement. And at an early age in law enforcement, I knew that I wanted to eventually become sheriff. So I tried to work my way through a lot of different divisions to gain that knowledge. So I've both worked and supervised in investigations, patrol, special operations, a number of different ways that way. I've also had the opportunity to supervise in special operations capacity through Red River Valley SWAT and work through a lot of critical incidents, and also am a national certified instructor in law enforcement, so I've had the opportunity to gain knowledge that way in training other officers to become better.
All right. Thank you. So Matthew King, same question for you. Describe your experience in law enforcement specifically related to supervision, if you can.
My supervision, if it comes down to it, is going to involve the UAS. I haven't had or held a position in supervisor inside of law enforcement, mainly because when I've tried to go to other units I've been told that UAS was supposed to be #1. I wasn't allowed to apply for SWAT. I wasn't allowed to try to do street crimes because UAS was supposed to be like the #1 topic. So I haven't held those positions, but as I've grown and taught across this country and helped a lot of agencies get over a lot of different humps with their policy or their budget, or learning how to speak with people, learning to speak with their other people on how to get the point across of what we're looking at on the UAS, because we take in a lot of data. So my supervisory skills are going to just be limited to UAS in that capacity.
All right, thank you. So Matthew, we'll begin with you for the next question. How can the Cass County Sheriff's Office decrease the number of people who end up in the jail because of mental health crisis?
I think that we have to look at the mental health as maybe increasing one or two, maybe three more people inside the jail, and work with state's attorneys and figure out what are we going to end up doing. We're seeing a little bit more mental health coming out from coming from the street into the court transport. You kind of see and how I get to hear some of the things that are going on with people. Bringing that mental health capacity into kind of the jail reform and bail reform, like some of these guys might need a little bit of a different curve versus being locked up, as one would say, put away into the jail. But then on the backside of it, we need more mental health individuals to help facilitate these.
All right, thank you. Jesse.
Yeah, so there's a number of things that we've been working on to decrease the amount of mental health situations that we've been working through, and some of the people that have been coming into the jail. So we currently have a mental health coordinator at the jail, and that person is very important in identifying what types of mental health crises or help that person needs when they come into our facility. And through that coordinator, we can work with our community to try to get them assistance. 2 years ago at the legislative level, I lobbied to increase mental health services to our community. There was an effort to decrease some of those mental health services, and I lobbied against that, and we were successful in keeping some of those. I think that right now there's an issue with people coming into our facility with mental health issues and not getting the proper treatment and being able to be successful on the outside. So I think through our mental health coordinator and some of those programs that we've been working with collaboratively, we can curb that. Also, we've recently put together a work group of a bunch of community services along with Sanford Health to come up with different ways that we can work through some of the mental health situations that we've currently been dealing with in our community.
Okay, thank you. So Jesse, the next question will begin with you. Why is the expansion of the jail needed?
We started experiencing capacity issues in the Cass County Jail about 2 years ago, and I started recognizing that. And so I approached our commissioners and our county administrator and started giving them some of the numbers that we are seeing as far as capacity issues and the amount of people that were coming in, and working collaboratively with them. We've been working diligently to come up with a plan to increase capacity at the Cass County Jail. We have seen high numbers, and there's been instances where law enforcement officers making some arrests haven't been able to bring people into the Cass County Jail. And so that's certainly a public safety issue. And so we've been working over the last couple of years on a design of a new facility and a smart design, because we're experiencing a number of issues with mental health issues, like I mentioned already, addiction issues, intoxication management. And the jail was originally built in 2002. It didn't have those things in mind. And so the new construction of the jail or architecture of the jail, we're looking to design it so that we can focus on those particular issues that we're seeing in there, so that we can help start that rehabilitation process in the jail so that we can reduce recidivism and people don't come back.
Okay, thank you. So Matthew, same question. Why do you see the expansion of the jail as needed? Or do you, I guess?
Well, just like the sheriff said, there have been times where the jail has been full. But we also have to look at, with the expansion, one expansion is one thing, but if we keep expanding, are we helping the mental health issue or mental health issues? Are we looking at keeping people locked away. I want to start looking at, expand. If there needs to be another expansion, we also need to find bodies or staffing for that. So in the nationwide shortage that we have for staffing right now, we also have to look at the issues of how can we curb the amount of people being in there? Do we open up our CSU or a community service unit to have more people out in the street where we can keep track of them? Because one of the issues I see is if we keep expanding and expanding on the jail, which I understand people want to have people locked away that has caused a crime, we need to find the staffing for it. And that's going to add pressure onto our people by watching more people, or nobody gets into the position to hold it. So if we can expand once, maybe look at doing it twice, but we got to find an alternative means for some of these people.
All right, thank you. So Matthew, the next question will begin with you. From a law enforcement perspective, would you share your views on the initiated measure that we'll be voting on in November on the legalization of recreational marijuana?
Share my views on it? What was the question?
Yes. So would you share your views? And you can do it from a law enforcement perspective or your own personal perspective. What are your views on the legalization of recreational marijuana?
Well, this question has been posed to me a couple times. If this gets approved, would you allow your deputies to partake in recreational marijuana because it would be legalized? And then that ends up causing issues throughout. I talked to an agency out west, and they said it just ends up, if we're going to legalize marijuana, we have to find a standard when it comes to DUI drugs. We have to find what is going to be a legal limit for it. There's a lot of different things that, like Colorado and Washington, have been working on, but I think the main question back to me so far on this is, would you allow your deputies to partake in recreational marijuana? And at this point, with so many unknowns, I would say no. I get that it would be legalized, but the deputies that are working, I would have to say no until more data or studies have been done and concluded.
Great, thank you. Jesse?
Sure. So in our branches of government, we have two different branches. We have the executive and legislative, and our legislative branch is the branch that proposes laws or legislation, and that's how we get laws. And of course, the executive branch is the branch that enforces the laws, which would be law enforcement. So certainly legalization of marijuana is on the ballot right now, and the citizens will go to the polls and they'll vote on that, and our legislators will make laws governing that. Our job is to enforce the laws, and so however that vote comes out, we'll enforce the law. Do I have concerns about it? I do. I think that we're moving a little bit quick. I believe that we don't have maybe some of the proper infrastructure in place to deal with the legalization of marijuana, such as addiction issues and stuff like that. A number of the issues that we're currently dealing with in our jail and our capacity issues, because the majority of those are related to addiction. And so my concern is that maybe some of the infrastructure pieces aren't put into place before this goes forward. But certainly, whatever the voters vote on, that is how we'll enforce the law.
All right, so Jesse, the next question begins with you. Would you support a law prohibiting citizens from recording the actions of on-duty officers as have been passed in other states?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, would you support a law prohibiting citizens from recording the actions of on-duty officers as have been passed in other states?
I'm not opposed to citizens recording law enforcement officers. We already use body cams, and so that stuff's already recorded anyways. So I'm not against that. I'm speaking for the law enforcement in this area, and many of them that I know, and all the agencies, and being able to train with them over the years. And the law enforcement officers that we have in this area are very professional. There's nothing that concerns me with our law enforcement officers being recorded in this area, because I know that they have a high level of integrity, professionalism, and there's no secrets. We want to be transparent in anything that we do. Prohibiting something like that only leads me to believe that someone would want to try to hide something by doing that. And I just feel like when our officers are out there, they're always maintaining that high level of professionalism and integrity. And like I said, we're recording it anyways, and we can release that footage. And so anyone else recording it, that's fine with me.
And Matthew.
I have the same thought as the sheriff. As long as you're recording from a safe distance, don't come in and hinder the investigation of any way, shape, or form. But we are public officials. We are where the public has the right of access to be able to record. Have at it. If you start getting into too close and you get asked to back away, just back away. Continue recording, but I'm not going to tell somebody to stop recording because, like Jesse said, we're in law enforcement. We have body cams. If there's a spinoff of what they want to put out there, we can put out what happened on the body cam just as easy. So that's, have at her.
All right. So then, Matthew, this next question begins with you. Do you support the views of the Constitutional Sheriff and Police Officers Association that include the following? The view that the county, not the state or federal government, should control all the land within its borders, and that the county sheriff is the ultimate enforcement authority in the United States. Do you want me to read that one more time?
Yeah.
Okay. I know it's like takes up the whole card
One more
here.
go around.
Okay, so do you support the views of the Constitutional Sheriff and Police Officers Association that include the following? The view that the county, not the state or federal government, should control all the land within its borders, and that the county sheriff is the ultimate enforcement authority in the United States.
I'm trying to figure out if I answer yes on this one. I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around it. But essentially what I gather out of it is, yes, the sheriff should be the one that controls the boundaries because you're elected by the people. Where the state, you get your legislation that goes out there, you have your governor that's out there, but your law enforcement sheriff is the one that's going to fight, defend, and protect your constitutional rights and stand up against anything that's unconstitutional and should be able to fight for anything that is unconstitutional. One of the questions that got brought up to me before is, if I was sitting sheriff when the COVID and the mask mandates, would I take it to the aspect of tackling and arresting people that took place down in San Diego, I believe it was? And I would say no. I don't believe that our right as a sheriff is to make your medical decisions. And when it comes down to a mandate, it's a mandate. It wasn't a law that was put into place. And that's where I kind of stand where with the sheriff is, I'm standing with you guys as the citizens. And I'm here to fight and defend and protect your constitutional rights.
Okay, thank you. And Jesse.
I do believe in the constitutional sheriff, much like has already been mentioned. As the sheriff, we are voted into office by the people or elected by the people, so we work directly for the people. As a sheriff, we take an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of North Dakota, and I stand by that. And I mentioned earlier that we have a legislative branch that creates laws in our state, and we have an executive branch that carries out those laws. And so I stick by anything that is constitutional. If it is unconstitutional, then that is something I would stand up against. And so I do very much believe in the constitutional sheriff, and that our main job is to enforce the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of North Dakota.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to try to sneak in one more question and combine a bunch of these. So Jesse, we'll begin with you. So basically we had a number of questions looking at what can the Sheriff's Department do to increase safety and quality of life for people in the county. So things like, reducing lawlessness, but also concerns about street racing and gun violence. So what can the sheriff do to help decrease crime and increase quality of life in Cass County?
Sure. So obviously my number one goal is public safety. And so we're always going to be concentrated on that. So we're always looking at ways that we can provide a higher level of public safety to our citizens. We certainly want Cass County to be a great place to raise a family and a safe place to raise a family so that everyone can prosper. There are a number of things that I've done since I've been sheriff to increase the safety to our community. One of those is assigning a number of our individuals to joint task forces that we have, the Metro Area Street Crimes Unit, SWAT, the Narcotics Drug Task Force. We've also recently added an intel analyst at our agency, and that person can look over reports that come into our office, gather other intel from other agencies, and that helps us direct our resources to those criminal activities that are occurring in Cass County. And it's also fiscally responsible to the taxpayers. We started a recent interdiction effort to where we can interdict, hopefully, narcotics coming into our area. We've done some interdiction downtown with the Fargo Police Department, and we've also teamed up with them. And finally, we have a number of proactive different types of programs that we offer to our citizens through our Adopt a Community program and meeting and working with our communities. And so all those ways, I think, are ways that we've definitely shown that we want to be proactive in curbing crime in our community.
Okay, thank you. Matthew.
Question again?
Okay, so it was a combining three questions, so I'm probably not going to say it exactly the same, but what can the Cass County Sheriff do to decrease crime and increase quality of life for the people in Cass County?
Right, and you mentioned about street racing.
Yes, that was one of the questions, issues that got brought up.
One of the ideas that I've had is trying to start a little metro unit. I want to try to hire anywhere between 28 and 32 brand new people right now. Some go to patrol to cover the areas of Cass County to have a better reaction time. Some, possibly 9 right now, and my idea is to work inside of Fargo, West Fargo. Because of the number of calls that are happening and transpiring, instead of using and allocating our assets out in the county right now, I want them inside of Fargo. And having 2 people working during the day, 2 people at night, having a sergeant kind of overlooking this idea, they can help out Fargo PD with some of the street racing that you have mentioned, not only with the cars, but you have the motorcycles. If there is a shooting or when it comes to gun violence, it comes down to you don't know when it's ever going to happen. You don't know when somebody's going to decide to go pull that trigger. But we would have resources inside of Fargo at that point to help Fargo PD or help West Fargo PD with having my little metro unit that I have in mind to help out the safety of all citizens of Cass County, to include West Fargo and Fargo.
All right, thank you. So this concludes the question and answer portion of the forum. Just want to thank the audience for submitting such a nice variety of questions for the candidates to answer. And we want to thank the candidates for participating. For the audience at home, if you'd like to continue to learn more about the candidates, the League has partnered with Forum Communications to present vote411.org. It's a voter's guide to help you learn more about North Dakota candidates' positions on important issues. And so if you go in and put in your address, you can actually see all of the candidates that are going to be on your ballot, and you can compare their answers to the different questions that were posed. So you can stay tuned to the forum and the League's Facebook page. The voter's guide is live right now at vote411.org. And I do just want to put in a friendly reminder. The general election, as we can see up on the screen, is November 8th. But in Cass County, early voting begins October 31st in person if you want to go to a voting site. Mail-in voting absentee ballot voting is ongoing right now. But if you like to go to an actual polling location, early voting begins October 31st. All of that information also available on vote411.org, also describes what you need to bring with you when you go to the polls, and basically everything you would need to cast your vote. So check it out. All right, so Matthew, we will do closing statements. You will go first for closing statements. All right.
Well, once again, thank you everybody for tuning into this, showing up tonight, asking the questions. I have many different ideas with my forward thinking of thinking outside of the box and trying to push people to become better. If I become sheriff, I want the deputies and the people working for me to take pride in their work. I want them to strive to be their very best and go succeed. At the end of the day, we're all leaders in one way or another. And if we don't help mentor the next go around, at some point, there's going to have to be somebody that's going to replace him, or it's going to be somebody that's going to replace me. And we have to teach our people and lead them and trust in them to get the job done.
All right, thank you. Jesse.
Yeah, law enforcement is facing challenging times, no doubt. Our community is facing more challenges. And And as the sheriff, we need to protect our constitutional rights of our citizens and provide a high level of public safety to our community so our community remains a safe place to raise a family. As sheriff, I'm going to be someone who is going to be remain professional, keep a high level of integrity for our agency, and we're going to be forward-thinking. I think we've proven that over the last 3.5 years under my leadership with some of the programs that we've implemented. I've been able to lead our office through some challenging times. I've led during 2 different floods. I've led during civil unrest in our community. I've led during a pandemic and also a shortage in law enforcement officers. There's been a number of different types of programs and things that we've implemented to make it through those challenging times. And most definitely, like I said earlier, we still face some of those. And so I think that my leadership has proven itself up to this point, and I'm looking forward to leading the sheriff's office into the next 4 years.
All right, thank you. And thank you, candidates. Let's give them a round of applause.